care anything about the wildlife, and I'm sure all of you here do, then we really need to get on our toes. There is that water land with the Ballona Wetlands Land Trust has sued the Santa Monica Bay Restoration Commission, who came up with this alternative. And I'm going to let him tell you about it.
Very hard to keep up. I'm very appreciative of people like Jeanette, Kathy, Lauren, the whole group here, all of you for coming out, meeting, trying to deal with all of these issues. It can be a little bit overwhelming. And I realized that this is my 4th time speaking to this group since 2011. And every single time, the topic has been the draft environmental impact report for the Ballona Wetlands Restoration Project. I'll do a little bit of background. First, I'm going to talk a little bit about the Ballona Wetlands Land Trust. We have been around since 1994. We were created before I even knew what Ballona was. I was still an East Coaster. And the sole purpose was to protect this ecosystem. I have not, so the project that Jeanette talked about, we haven't even gotten into analyzing that project yet. We have, I'll talk about some of the concerns that we've raised in our public comments and that sort of thing. But our focus has not been to support or oppose a project. Our purpose has been to get transparency. Because our belief is if you don't have transparency, you're not going to make a good decision. If you get everything out in the open and you put information in front of people, you're much more likely to come to an intelligent result than if it's just sort of PR and hyperbole and that sort of thing. And that's really what my focus is going to be on tonight. And I am going to talk about some of the concerns that Jeanette raised, but in the context of, asking questions. The first thing I always like to start with is, right, we're all busy, so why is this important? Why is transparency, which sometimes probably feels more like a buzzword than something real, why is that important? Why is it especially important at Ballona? And so here we'll just do our little bit of history, right? I'm not going to go back all the way to Howard Hughes or to 2,000 years ago. There have been some really wonderful presentations that people have done about this, the historical ecology of the Ballona Wetlands. I'm only going to go back to 2003, right? That's when, after decades and decades of work, really just a lot of gut-wrenching work, the state finally acquired this land, 600 acres, less than what really should have been acquired and what needed to be acquired, but a lot more than anyone thought would be acquired. When I moved out here in 2001, I had very good, well-intentioned people telling me, this is the little corner we're going to save, everything else is condos. And they were convinced that we couldn't save anything north of the creek and that we couldn't save anything east of Lincoln. And we saved a lot north of the creek and a lot east of Lincoln. And actually, there was a little piece in the southwest corner that was going to be developed as well. So big, big victory to get that land. Now, that's 2003. I just want to point out, the Al Wright, Executive Director of the Wildlife Conservation Board, the agency that voted to buy the wetlands, said he expects planning to take 3 to 5 years, right? So there was trending into the timeline, and that's why this is important. So these kids, first graders, right, 2003, we just got this brand new ecological reserve. That's a lot of educational opportunity for the hundreds of thousands of kids that we have right here in LA. That might even be an underestimate. Those kids are in college now, okay? And very few of the kids in Los Angeles, unless you were really lucky, actually got to go out to the Ballona Wetlands Ecological Reserve, okay? There are some programs that are run in the wetlands. So every Tuesday and Thursday, the Los Angeles Audubon Society takes kids, groups of kids out there, maybe 30, 40 at a time, maybe like 60 at a time, and they're typically 3rd graders, 4th graders, maybe 2nd, 5th graders. And I know that our friends at Ballona Wetlands also does some tours out there. But we're getting a very small percentage of the kids that we could get out there for an educational opportunity. That's one of the many issues that by not having this ecological reserve functioning the way an ecological reserve should be functioning, there's been a tremendous lost opportunity these last 12 or so years, okay? So this is a quote, this is not my quote, and I would not use the word crime because I think it's a little inflammatory, and I'll get into that in a little bit. We have to try to be as diplomatic as possible because there's a lot of tension and a lot of charged emotions with this topic, so that to the extent that we can not use inflammatory words, that's better. But I thought this was very interesting. It says, it is a crime on the part of the public agencies that 10 years after the purchase, Ballona is not one iota more accessible. Now, does anyone know who said this? Raise a hand. So you would think that it might be, one of the usual systems. Maybe I said it, maybe Marcia Hanscom said it, or, maybe Rex said it, who knows. But this was actually a quote from Shelley Luce. And some of you may or may not know who Shelley Luce is. Shelley was the former executive director of the SMBRC, Santa Monica Bay Restoration Commission. Those are the meetings that Kathy was talking about earlier. Now I'm going to use this opportunity to make my standard big disclaimer, okay? Because I just mentioned her name, I'm going to mention the names of a few other folks tonight. This is not about people, okay? These are not bad people, these are good people that are doing their jobs as best as they think they can do it within the system that they're working within, and it's really about the system. It's really about the bureaucracy and the political pressure that these people are under that's leading them to make decisions that are justified in their own minds. And if we take a step back and look, we might see that those decisions are harming the wetlands, okay? So I'll keep making this disclaimer because it's so important to stress, because we have to remember these people are human beings too, right? If they feel threatened, they're less likely to want to work with us. The end goal is to work together and get a great result. It's not to win a contest of this side versus that side, okay? And I can't stress that enough. Okay, so that was showing this. Now, I will say that. So I made that disclaimer so that I could then say, I think this was a little self-serving and disingenuous of Shelley, because as we walk through this, I think she actually has to shoulder a little bit of the responsibility that, decades later, we still don't have one iota additional access. Okay, so this is the interim stewardship and access management plan. You'll see the date on this, 2005, okay? So almost 11 years ago. And in this was a big document that the state paid quite a bit of money, that they commissioned a environmental architect to put together recommendations. And it's a great document, and there's a lot of good stuff in there. One of the recommendations was to use groups like ours that had been in the wetlands for years, cleaning up trash, cleaning up invasive species, educating folks about the wetlands, take advantage of that existing, community. They didn't do it, okay? And it's really unfortunate they didn't do it. Here's, I just, clipped together a couple of the little bits here. So, Ballona Wetlands Land Trust accesses the site, variety of locations, trash pickup, what I just said, invasive species. Little educational booth. We used to do this all the time. It was great. People were excited about it, okay? Kids love nature, adults love nature. It's really important for all of us to have that nature and to appreciate it. And unfortunately, we no longer have access. If I were to go out onto the ecological reserve and, take out, let's say, some invasive castor bean or pick up some trash, I could get a ticket. There's somebody in this room, actually, I won't say that person's name, but who did get a ticket because they were taking a picture of a butterfly, right, in an ecological reserve. Yet there's a lot of illicit activity out in the wetlands that's actually very damaging, not only to the wetlands itself, but to surrounding communities. We think if there are more people out there appreciating nature with binoculars, reporting stuff that was going wrong, there'd be a lot less of that other activity. And so what we have is a largely neglected, very, very expensive, I should add, public resource, okay? So getting back to the why is this important? If we don't know why this is happening, then we can't fix it. And we don't know why it's happening if the agencies don't tell us. And so if all we hear is, oh, we're working on the draft DIR, it's right around the corner, just be patient, it's coming, we're gonna continue to lose more and more time, okay? So, I showed you those first graders who are now in college. There's first graders right now. My own daughter's going to kindergarten next year. I don't want it to be another 10 years, okay? And it truly could be if we don't keep our eye on the project, right? It's not hard for these things to get out of control. Any questions on any of that up to this point? Okay, so going back to the project timeline. I said here a decade-long fiction, and that's really what it is. And this particular document, I think, is from 2004, and it indicates, if you see that little blue arrow, it says EIS preparation, and it gets right to the end of 2007, probably end of winter 2006. And that's when they were hoping to have the draft environmental impact report out, okay? End of 2006. So we're not quite running 10 years behind schedule based on that initial assessment, okay? Now, that's a pretty tough assessment to make. They hadn't done a lot of studies yet. Kind of like trying to determine how long it'll take to mow somebody's lawn when you haven't seen it yet. I should say native garden now, because we're moving away from lawns, right? So you can see over there, I didn't put in every single time that there was a delay, because there's about 10 different times, right? We'd be here for a long time. You can see this early action plan, baseline long-term monitoring, and then CEQA process design and permits, 2009 to 2011. Okay, so this you see it's just starting to push back further and further. Then we, oh, by the way, these are all their official project team official documents, right? This is stuff that came from their different presentations. Then you see it moving into fall 2012 to get the draft EIR out, and you can see certify and record of decision for final EIS EIR spring 2013. Okay, EIS, by the way, is the federal equivalent. It's environmental impact statement, right? EIR is environmental impact report. So because it's a federal and state project. Now, this is an email. Now, again, I'm going to make a little disclaimer. Okay, never in my life have I been in a position where my emails were subject to public scrutiny, and I'm glad of that, right? Because I would say things in emails about, the programmer down the hall. I probably don't want the programmer down the hall to see. I was in the Army for a little while, but we didn't have email back then, so I've never been in that situation. So I am sensitive to that fact. So I put these emails up. I'm not trying to make anyone look bad, but it's important that we know this. So what does this say? It says, Diana is trying to work with Howard. Diana was an SMBRC staff member, okay? Is working with Howard, Annenberg's consultant. Not even going to get into Annenberg tonight, because I'll talk about it maybe just very quickly for those who don't know. The Annenberg Foundation tried to build a 46,000 square foot building, the main purpose of which was to be a domestic dog and cat adoption and care center. That's an issue near and dear to my heart. I would never put that in an ecological reserve, and that's what they tried to do. So for about 3 years this went on, a big focus of our organization to finally get them to realize it was a very bad idea. And that's part of the transparency. I'm going to get that in a little bit. But this was an email that says, Annenberg's consultant, the project description. The project description is probably the most important part of a draft environmental impact report, because it's around the project description that you basically build everything else, okay? And it says, emails are getting testy, we can need a phone call, right? Very tight timeline, and I need help to work so they don't slow us down, okay? Well, they did slow them down. I've got many other emails showing that this really had a negative impact on the timeline, because what they did is they had a secret process underway. In August of 2012, a bunch of us in this room went to a scoping meeting, and that they talked about what they were going to do. There was no mention of this building, even though they were already working on it. So for 16 months, behind closed doors, they had these discussions. If you look at the date, it says October 8th, 2012. I had no idea that there was any discussion whatsoever of this building in the ecological reserve. And I'm meeting with the Santa Monica Bay Restoration at that same time. So think about that for a second. You've got a nonprofit who everybody knows is deeply invested, been around for a long time, exclusive focus on this ecological reserve, and they don't tell us that this is happening. This had already been underway for a year and 1 month by the time this email came out. And we found out about it, in the news like everyone else on January 28th, 2013, okay? So it would have been nice if we knew ahead of time, because we could have helped them understand what they were eventually going to understand, was that this was a tremendously bad idea a lot sooner in the process. Would have saved everybody time and money. It would have saved you money because you paid for a lot of it with your tax dollars. It would have saved Annenberg money, and frankly, they do a lot of good stuff with their money. I like to go to their pool all the time, so I don't like to see a nonprofit like that, Philanthropic Foundation, spend, they probably spent between $5 and $10 million on the project before bailing out. So we can avoid those things. The quote at the bottom is from Senator Patrick Leahy, okay, 1996. Press releases tell us when federal agencies do something right, but the Freedom of Information Act lets us know when they do not. I love that quote, and I only stumbled on it about a month ago, because the last 3 years of my life or so have been trying to reconcile press releases with these kinds of emails that say the opposite of what we're reading in the paper, right? So we'll get into a little bit more of that and why that's important. So again, we keep moving it back. Okay, now it's certified record of decision, summer 2014. Then after Annenberg left, they pushed it back again. Now we get to spring 2016 just for the draft, right? The last one was 2014 to certify. Now we're at 2016 just for the draft. And then we have this email from, again, this is Public Records Act request, how we got this. So this is actually a FOIA request, it's a federal agency. Drop dead date. So now they're done delaying, all right? They're done delaying, they've been delaying for 10 years. We're getting this draft EIR out at the end of 2015, gosh darn it, right? Drop dead date. But you'll notice he says now, they insist these drop dead dates that they want to complete this year, but they've slipped their own schedules before, right? So let's what does he say? Let's take a wait and see approach. Well, that was a good idea because they didn't make this date either, okay? And I know because I was tracking it, and right up at the point of time, this December 28th, I told a reporter, hey, I'm gonna give you some inside information, the draft EIR is coming out in a couple days. Well, egg on my face when again, they missed it again. But unfortunately, the papers used to report every time there was a setback. Now it's happened so many times that the media doesn't even cover it anymore. So what happens is people kind of get apathetic. Say, oh, it would be news if they actually made the date. It's not news if they don't make the date. And that's part of the cycle of less and less accountability, less and less transparency, and that's what we have to get out of, okay? So this is the new one. I just pulled this off the internet today. You can see now it's summer 2016. But it doesn't do any good for us to just kind of keep delaying and kicking the can down while the wetlands remain neglected. At some point, we have to get something on the table and talk about it. I think everyone believes we have to do something because a ecological reserve, that's got a lot of trash, got a lot of homelessness, has, invasive species. That's a whole other discussion we'll not get into tonight as to which ones are good and which ones maybe aren't good and how do you make that determination. That's a complex discussion. But the point being, I think everyone wants to make these wetlands better. And so we've got to get the ideas out on the table where we can start talking about. So I do hope that it comes out, but who knows? And they literally have missed the last 10 deadlines that they've set. Okay, so why is it getting delayed? All right, we've asked that question. We want to know because we want to understand what they're doing to change. I mentioned software. In software, we often would be late on a delivery, but we wouldn't be indefinitely late. We wouldn't just say, there's the old Far Side cartoon where he says, the guy's looking at his calendar, he says, how about never? Would that work? and you can't do that in software because eventually you have to put the product out that you can sell it. When you have no accountability, you actually could do that. It could be never, right? But that obviously isn't really acceptable anyway. So we want to know what are the problems that have been causing these delays, right? Not to point fingers, not to say, let's kill the project, but just to say we kind of want this to move forward. What's wrong? And the answer we get back has always just been, well, it's very complex, right? That's kind of a cop-out because they should have known that it was complex when they started. And they certainly should have known as they were going in 1 year, 2 years. At some point in time, it starts to appear that maybe you don't have the right skill sets on your team. Maybe you don't have enough people on your team. Maybe you don't have the right funding. Fairly innocuous things, right? It's not that people are embezzling the money and going down to Mexico or that they're rubbing their hands, seeing how they can destroy the wetlands. It's just that maybe they don't have the right management structure in place, right? And I've pointed out, I'm not going to go through all the things. I know in past discussions I've talked about how the lead EIR consultant was terminated after years of work. One of the agencies, the State Coastal Conservancy, said, you're delivering inadequate work product, so you're fired. Here's your $1 million+ for the work you did, right? That'll set you back, right, sometime. The Annenberg thing, we talked about that, was a big setback. But this is just another sort of innocuous example, right? I'm not going to read through the whole email, but it basically says that biologists at Fish and Wildlife, which is the state agency that owns the land, have some issues, have some concerns, whatever you want to call it, with the work done by the consultants. By the way, all the work is done by consultants. You're often hearing, oh, this is Fish and Wildlife's project. And the idea is to make you think that there are all these crackerjack biologists up in Sacramento and down here working on this stuff, and that's not how it's done. It's all consultants. A lot of the consultants, again, wrongly or rightly, just a fact, are the same consultants that worked on Playa Vista, okay? So you'll see, you look at these big engineering firms, these environmental engineering firms, and again, not a right or a wrong judgment, but just fact, to get business, right, to stay in business, to be profitable, to be an international corporation like IFCI was, you're not getting paid a lot of money to just go find places where you can increase habitat for butterflies, right? A lot of the work that you'll find that these companies do is helping people with their permits by taking like a project that's bad 9 out of 10 on the Richter scale and like lowering it down to 7 so that they can get the permit, okay? So that's true, a lot of the consultants working this, again, not bad people, not to say that they're out there, trying to destroy the wetlands, but they're making decisions under a framework that's very different than you or I might make a decision. We'll talk about that as well. So I just want to get that out there, that these are the kinds of problems. Now, where did I get this email? I had to fight tooth and nail for this email. I had to ask them for it. They said, we don't have any emails that fit that description, except these ones that we've exempted. I had to explain to them the law with some help from my lawyer to say, no, that's not how that exemption works. That's not deliberative if it talks about a final decision, which a final decision is, we're going to push the project back. So I finally got this email, and this is helpful to me. There's some other emails I'm not going to throw up there, but that sort of show the mindset of the agencies. That's helpful to us too. It's very helpful to us as the public to know what different factors, what different conflicting interests are they trying to balance, right? Because it's tough. Their jobs are tough, but we need to know the nature of their job and the decisions that they're making so that we can help them not make another Annenberg decision, okay? Is this all making sense so far? All right, I would definitely take questions. If you have a big question that you're not understanding, raise your hand, we'll get out of the way, but otherwise we'll wait to the end if we can wait. Okay, so where does this lead us? So we thought this was really important. Hopefully I've communicated to you why this is important. And if not, do please, let's do some Q&A because I want everyone to understand at least why we think it's important. But we got to the point where we wanted more records. We weren't getting them. Now, a lot of people think with CEQA that maybe there's like a CEQA piece out there. And if you don't do the right thing on your draft environmental impact report, some CEQA agency says, no, you didn't do this right, do it again. It's not true. You could write a draft AIR in crayon and have it be one page and say, this is a great project. Now, would that ever fly? No, right? So I'm obviously purposely exaggerating there. But there's no state agency that will look at that and say, no, you can't do that. You can't write this in crayon. Somebody would have to sue. That's the only way CEQA gets enforced. It's actually written into the law. The purpose of CEQA is to do nothing more than to set a series of guidelines by which stakeholders can sue. So one of the tricks that, I shouldn't say trick, I'm not trying to use not loaded words, but one of the strategies that agencies will use and developers will use is, oh, we live in such a litigious society, right? Oh, these environmental jihadists, right? We've been called every name in the book. They just sue at the drop of a pin. And what they don't explain is that, again, that's truly the only way to enforce certain laws. It's the same thing with the Public Records Act. If I ask any state agency or city agency or whatever, does everyone know what the Public Records Act is, by the way? Okay. In the state of California, every agency, all their records are your records, okay? Everything that they do to conduct your business is your record, okay? And you have a right to it. Now, we really do our best to not burden the agency, because there are people out there who just will fire off left and right Public Records Act requests and really just sort of break time. We always say, hey, can you give this to us voluntarily, right? Here's the information we need. But it's so egregious the way that documents have been hidden from us, right? That's why we didn't know about Annenberg till it happened. That we finally had to take a little more action. So in this case, we sent several letters saying, here's why it's the law for you to give us these records about the Ballona Wetlands Ecological Reserve. Because what we realized was happening, I should explain this, is Kathy mentioned the Santa Monica Bay Restoration Commission. There's another organization whose legal name is the Santa Monica Bay Restoration Foundation. It's a nonprofit. They mostly now go by the alias, the Bay Foundation. Again, good people. They do a lot of good projects under intense political pressure to sometimes, what I would say is cut corners on certain environmental aspects of the project. Well, what they had done was somebody came up with the clever idea that we don't want to give these documents up because they're actually really, really embarrassing, right? We're actually getting money from the Annenberg Foundation and using it to pay state staff working on this project. We really don't want people to know that. Ballona Wetlands Land Trust is asking for those documents. We don't want to give them up. What do we do? Well, they said, well, you know what? Most of our employees are actually hired and paid for by the foundation. They've always sort of treated themselves as the same thing. But somebody realized that they could make that distinction and say, well, hey, the foundation's not subject to these transparency laws. All these I shouldn't say employees, all these state staff members are hired by the foundation. We'll just say that the foundation has those documents. And so that's what this is saying. You don't have to read the whole thing. But truly, think about me reading this after I've been to meetings, just, many, many, many meetings of Santa Monica Bay Restoration Commission, Restoration Commission letterhead, Restoration Commission business cards, commission, to get this thing that says the commission is not privy to documents retained by foundation staff that do not pertain to commission business, such as the Ballona Wetlands Restoration Project, right? You can imagine the sort of gasket that I blew. So we had to sue. So this is another thing. So there's public and private entity swap. If you go on the BallonaRestoration.org website, it used to say that those were the four partners. And it even said that California Department of Fish and Wildlife, in partnership with the State Coastal Conservancy and the Santa Monica Bay Restoration Commission, has spent years it had been over a decade, right, has spent years working with the public and envisioning, blah, blah, blah. And they just switched it. They just decided one day that they would take the state logo out, put the private alter ego logo in, and it actually now says the California Department of Fish and Wildlife, in partnership with the State Coastal Survey and the Bay Foundation, has spent years. I don't ever see the movie Gaslighting, or what was it called, Gaslight?
Yeah.
That's an old one. Or maybe a new one is like Flight Plan, or just something where someone's playing just a really big mind game on. I was waiting for Ashton Kutcher, to come out with the camera and say, it's all a big joke. But this is what they did. So, luckily for us, there were hundreds of documents out there. Too many. I'll talk about this. We actually made a mistake probably by providing too much evidence. Okay, so the California State Coastal Conservancy, the Department of Fish and Game, are working with the staff of the Santa Monica Bay Restoration Commission, right? That's how it had always been. You see, I highlighted all the places. It says SMBRC, SMBRC, SMBRC. And then it says, now that the CEQA process is about to begin, staff member Diana Holbert will also help move this project forward by providing her specific CEQA expertise. So they said, all those documents were a mistake. What we really meant to, I kid you not, we have it all on video too, they said those were mistakes. We used to sometimes use those terms interchangeably, right? So they would say this agency or the private foundation interchangeably. Again, they really didn't want to give up those records. So during the legal process, one of the things that they said, this was towards the end, was none of the work performed by Ms. Holbert or Ms. Johnson regarding Ballona Wetlands was charged to the US EPA grant. There's a little double negative here, and it was not performed for or on behalf of the SMBRC. And if you looked down at the bottom, I kind of tacked that on. I declare on this day penalty of perjury pursuant to the law of the state of California. And I didn't put the gentleman's signature that wrote this because it's not important. He's actually a super good guy. I don't think he's a dishonest person at all. I think he's a really good guy. I don't know why he wrote that. I think he was told, look, this is what you're going to write in your declaration. You're going to sign it under penalty of perjury. You're going to say that these two people didn't perform this work on behalf of SMBRC. So again, we put all those documents in front of the judge. And I'm going too far here. Yeah, so then this is what the judge said. You're not going to read the whole thing, right? There's many pages. My eyes start to gloss over. But in red, it says the evidence reflects that Johnson's functions as a public officer for SMBRC and that he performed work on Ballona Wetlands projects for SMBRC. All right? So just think about that for a second, because I understand this stuff gets mundane and it can kind of sound like, well, legal this and legal that, but just think, you've got a state agency. You have a person that's been handing out business cards to that state agency saying, I work for that state agency. Hi, I'm so-and-so from SMBRC, a state agency. For years, for like 8 years, 6 years. And then you decide you don't want to give up those records. You start saying, oh, no, that's not the case. And so you swear under oath that those people didn't do that work for the state agency, and a judge has to say, hey, state agency, you're wrong. That person was doing work for you, the state agency, when they were working the Ballona Wetlands. Right? I don't know that that's ever happened, frankly, in the state. I can't find another instance where in the state of California, somebody was working for an agency but thought they weren't, or didn't know that they were. Right? Truly, if someone finds one, please let me know. So that, I put that up there to tell you that that's what we're dealing with. Now, this lawsuit cost a lot of money. A lot of money. Every time I get a bill from our attorney, I think, oh my God. And she's heavily discounted for us. Now, the kind of good news is we're going to get all that money back because they lost. Okay, I'll talk about that just a little bit. The bad news is that money that we get back is coming from all of us in this room, right? Because it's state money. All they had to do is when we asked for the records like 3 times, they could have blown us off the first 2 times, and the third time when we said, if you don't do this, we are going to sue you under the Public Records Act, and here are the arguments that we're going to make. They could have looked at that and said, yeah, you know what, let's not keep bluffing. So unfortunately that didn't happen. Not only the money that they have to get back to us, but you had 2 different state attorneys working on this quite a long time. There's many documents, all the different state police from SMBRC. This should just never have happened. And so we've got to fix this. And so the way we fix it isn't by going back to these guys and saying, we gotcha. It's to say, guys, come on, let's not keep doing this again. Because there's a lot of other issues that need to get resolved, and there's a better way to resolve those issues. So I will say we didn't get every record we asked for. I'm only bringing this up because it just sort of sticks in my craw, because I spent a lot of personal time on this. My time doesn't only our attorney's time gets reimbursed. My time, I never get that back, right? So for some of the other records, the judge said, from his record where the documents are stored, or whether they were stored in electronic format, basically saying we didn't show where they were stored. Unfortunately, like I said, I think we overestimated how much appetite the judge would have for reading through all this evidence, and so a lot of it just never got read. Because you'll see, right in their own declaration, they say that these documents were stored on the TBF server in its offices at LMU, which the judge had already determined was also a state agency server. So we, after the fact, said, hey judge, you're saying you don't know if this was stored in electronic format or where it was stored, but it's right there. But if anyone watches Judge Judy, once a judge sort of puts it in paper that they had made a determination, very rarely they say, oh my gosh, you're right, I made a mistake, right? So she just said, overruled, like literally these factual things. I mean, it could have been that we showed her a picture of a red apple and said this apple is red, and if she had said it was orange, she would say overruled. So that's what happened. So we already have the documents, so it's not a big deal, but just to point out that these are really uphill, expensive battles, and the agencies know that. So that's why they bluff a lot, because they think, you're not gonna spend tens and tens of thousands of dollars to sue us. So every now and again, I think we kind of have to. We kind of have to bite the bullet and say, oh my gosh, even though we're funded by, our board members are very generous. We have 7 board members, 2 of Donna and Patrick in the room, and we have 7 total in the back if you want to see. But we get like $5 bills too from people who send a Christmas card every year, a holiday card every year, and say thank you for the good work you're doing. We get $25 donations from retirees who are on a fixed income. So it was not an easy decision to invest that money. We just said if we don't do this, we're never going to get to the bottom, and we're not going to get the result we want. So, anyways. We did, and I'll talk about what hopefully is the result of that. Now,